Welcome to episode 176 of Gods and Heroes of Ancient Greece. My name is MyLinda, Butterworth, and today we tell the tale of Athene and Arachne. Arachne was a maiden who became famous throughout Greece, though she was neither well-born nor beautiful and came from no great city. She was the daughter of Idmon, a dyer of sheep's wool from Colophon, Lydia in the ancient kingdom of Anatolia. Her father was a humble dyer of wool. In this he was very skillful, producing many varied shades, while above all he was famous for the clear, bright scarlet which is made from shellfish, and which was most glorious of all the colors used in ancient Greece. Even more skillful than her father was Arachne. It was her task to spin the fleecy wool into a fine, soft thread, and to weave it into cloth on the high-standing loom within the cottage. Arachne was small and pale from much working. Her eyes were light, and her hair was a dusty brown, yet she was quick and graceful, and her fingers, roughened as they were, went so fast that it was hard to follow their flicking movements. Oh, how fine and fair were the things which she wove on her loom! Flax, wool, silk, she worked with all of them, and when they came from her hands, the cloth which she had made of them was so thin and soft and bright that people came from all parts of the world to see it. And they said that cloth so rare could not be made of flax or wool or silk, but the warp was of rays of sunlight, and the woof was of threads of gold. There were two things Arachne surpassed all others in, and that was weaving and arrogance. Under her creative needle and onto the growing web, across which her darting fingers spanned, she created cloth wonders. Arachne's fame became so great that people used to come from far and wide to watch her working. Even the graceful nymphs from the golden river Patroclus and from the vineyards of Tmolus would steal in from stream or forest and peep shyly through the dark doorway, watching in wonder the white arms of Arachne as she stood at the loom and threw the shuttle from hand to hand between the hanging threads, or drew out the long wool, fine as a hair, from the distaff as she sat spinning. Then, as day by day the girl sat in the sun and spun, or sat in the shade and wove, she said, "In all the world there is no yarn so fine as mine, and in all the world there is no cloth so soft and smooth, nor silk so bright and rare." Arachne was used to being wondered at, and she was immensely proud of the skill that had brought so many to look on her. Praise was all she lived for, and it displeased her greatly that people should think anyone, even a goddess, could teach her anything. Therefore, whenever she heard them murmur, she would stop her work and turn around indignantly to say, "With my own 2 fingers I gained this skill, and by hard practice from early morning till night. No one can weave as well as I can, not even Athene, who invented weaving." Word had gotten to Athene, the goddess of wisdom, as she watched the boastful Arachne from her throne on Mount Olympus. She thought it was time she had a word with this girl and set her straight. She then disguised herself as an old woman and appeared at her door. Athene said, "I have heard that Athene has blessed you with the skill of weaving. I have come to see for myself your skills." Arachne responded, "Athene had nothing to do with my skills. I learned them all on my own. I am the best you will ever see, old woman. See for yourself." "You are a talented weaver, Arachne, but a foolish girl," she said. "How dare you claim to be equal to the immortal gods themselves? I am an old woman and have seen much. Take my advice and ask forgiveness of Athene for your words. Be content with your fame of being the best spinner and weaver that mortal eyes have ever seen." "What? Ask forgiveness? You are a foolish old woman. I am telling the truth, and if Athene is offended by my claims, she is more than welcome to pay me a visit. I would be more than willing to show her how real weaving looks. I know she invented it, but I have perfected it, and I could teach her a few things, Arachne said confidently. At these words, the old woman, filled with rage, threw down her staff, and in the blink of an eye transformed into the magnificent goddess Athene. Those who were standing nearby immediately fell to their knees to honor the goddess, all except Arachne, who for a moment flushed red, for she had never really believed that the goddess would hear her. Arachne, said the woman, I am Athene, the goddess of craft and wisdom, and I have heard your boast. Are you certain you still mean to say that you can spin and weave as well as I? Arachne pressed her pale lips together in obstinance and pride and said, I have spoken the truth. No woman or goddess can rival my work. I stand by what I said. If you want to enter a contest with me, you are free to do so. Arachne's pride in her work was exceeded only by that of Athene's. The goddess, without hesitation, took her place by one of the great looms, and Arachne at the other. Without a word, both began to thread the long woolen strands that hang from the rollers, and between which the shuttle moves back and forth. Many skeins lay heaped beside them to use, bleached white and gold and scarlet and other shades varied as the rainbow. Arachne had never thought of giving credit for her success to her father's skill in dyeing, though in actual truth the colors were as remarkable as the cloth itself. Soon there was no sound in the room but the breathing of the onlookers, the whirring of the shuttles, and the creaking of the wooden frames as each pressed the thread up into place or tightened the pegs by which the whole was held straight. The two women, one mortal, one immortal, went to work and were ready to work all night long. Droves of people gathered to watch the weaving contest. The skill these two women possessed cannot adequately be described, and what they were producing was indeed a feast for the eyes. Athene's fingers produced pictures in the thread so lifelike and so perfect that the astonished onlookers couldn't distinguish her art from real life. She wove Athene. Into the cloth she wove the Areopagus hill, where ancient Cecrops built his citadel. 12 celestial gods surrounded Zeus on lofty thrones, and all their features were so nicely drawn that each could be distinguished. Zeus appeared as monarch of those judging gods. There, Poseidon, guardian of the sea, was shown fighting with Athene. As he struck the rock with his long trident, a wild horse sprang forth, which he bequeathed to man. He claimed his right to name the city for that gift, and then she wove a portrait of herself, bearing a shield, and in her hand a lance, sharp-pointed, and a helmet on her head, her breast well guarded by her Aegeus. There she struck her spear into the fertile earth, from which a branch of olive seemed to sprout, pale with new clustered fruits. And those 12 gods appeared to judge that olive as a gift surpassed the horse which Poseidon gave to man. As a final touch, and so that Arachne, rival of her fame, might learn the folly of her mad attempt to rise above the gods, in the 4 corners she wove scenes of mortals who had dared to defy the gods, and who had been punished without a trace of mercy. And she adorned the border with designs of the peaceful olive, her devoted tree, which having shown, she made an end of work. Arachne took her skeins of finest silk and began to weave, and she wove a web of marvelous beauty, so thin and light that it would float in the air, and yet so strong that it could hold a lion in its meshes. And the threads of warp and woof were of many colors, so brightly arranged and perfectly done. However, Arachne showed her arrogance once again as she wove tales that showed the weaknesses of the gods. She showed how Zeus had enticed Europa as a bull, the Spartan queen Leda as a swan, a shower of gold to seduce Danae, as well as 21 scenes of various misdemeanors of the mighty gods Poseidon, Apollo, Dionysus, and others. All of these were woven true to life in proper shades. And then Arachne, to complete her work, wove all around the web a patterned edge of interlacing flowers and ivy leaves. When the sun rose, yards of the finest cloth billowed out from each loom. Even Athene had to admit that Arachne's work was brilliant and flawless. The color, form, and exquisite detail of the woven pictures were equal. Enraged by such skills and her arrogance at challenging the gods, she ripped Arachne's work off the loom and ruined all the scenes that showed the wicked actions of the gods, and with her boxwood shuttle in hand, struck the unhappy girl on her head 3 times. Arachne's spirit, deigning not to brook such an insult, brooded on it, till she tied a cord around her neck and hung herself. When Arachne saw her, she took pity on her and sustained and saved her from bitter death. But she was still angry and pronounced a final judgment on the arrogant girl. "Although I grant you life, most wicked one, your fate and all your posterity shall dangle on a cord and weave forever as much as you like, but no one will care about your talent. As further punishment, your delicate woven webs will be destroyed whenever people see them." Even as she spoke, she sprinkled her with hellebane, an extract of herbs of Hecate. At once, all her hair fell off, her nose and ears disappeared, her head shrunk rapidly in size, as well as all of her body, leaving her diminutive. Her slender fingers gathered to her sides as long, thin legs, and all her other parts were drawn into her abdomen, from where she would spin her own fine threads. The curse of Athene had transformed Arachne right in front of everyone as a warning to not mock the gods. Now her name means an 8-legged spider, and her beautifully designed delicate webs may be something that inspires artists, but they are often swept away, as Athene had said. And here's where I end my tale for today. But I'll be back with more tales, many more tales. Until then, my friends, enjoy the journey.